Okay, hold on. Hey, I think we're live. Are we?
I'm not seeing it on my end
Same.
yet.
I see you guys as live. Give it just a minute, see if it updates. So
Okay. I see
Okay.
5 people waiting, it says. So
it's
Yeah, I
probably
see that.
it's probably four of
us
me
refreshing,
in
yeah.
there. Yeah.
It says, so you have start streaming enabled in YouTube Live Control Room.
Yeah, because I'm looking. So can you guys?
Oh, wait. It
Yes.
says
I
we're
mean, you're
live.
There
like
we are.
We're
We're
good. We're
on
live.
live.
there.
We're
Okay,
live. We made
so
it.
so the
All right.
delay is like 30 seconds or more. So that's interesting. So, oh yeah, I'm seeing the lag now.
Yeah,
All
me
right,
too.
let's
I had to
just
close it.
yeah.
There you
I'm
go.
gonna modify my font. I'm glad that the storms are over here in Georgia,
Mhm.
where I don't have
Yes.
to worry about the power going out. That was the one thing I was worried about. Like if I do anything today, was am
Right.
I gonna have electricity? So
Yep.
Yes. Luckily, it didn't seem to hit Georgia as bad as maybe we thought it would. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of flooding and issues, but
Yeah.
I think
East
the
side of the
wind
state got it
speed.
pretty good.
Yeah, they got it. Well, it makes sense because over into like Charleston, they got hit pretty hard, and they weren't
Yeah.
supposed to get hard. It was supposed to go straight up,
Right.
and it kind of went over, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was still pretty rough for a lot of people, but I think at least we got off easy here. Our power went out for maybe a minute.
Oh,
I
Our
nice.
power
slept
goes out
I
so
slept
easy.
great. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't notice anything. Like I woke up and I'm like, it's not raining. It's not storming. It's I'm just
Mhm.
like
Yeah. What's
trying.
happening?
Yeah, and then I went to AccuWeather and I was like, oh, it's all past. Like I slept through the hurricane. So I
Yeah.
guess
I woke up and it was like had just passed over us, and I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess I
Mhm.
slept through a lot
fair
of it."
enough.
So good for us, I guess. But yeah,
Well, you guys want to talk about Automatic? So in WP
sure.
Engine.
I would
So
love to.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so
Let's
I mean,
dig in.
I'm just trying to keep the conversation going because um, it's as an agency owner, it's hard to know like is this going to tank my company or is this just something that's going to be like it's all resolved. I think it's going to be all resolved pretty quickly, like in some months, and we'll laugh about this in a few years, maybe we won't, but I see this as a just kind of a blip in the history of WordPress, and my hope is that it's just a temporary thing where we see WordPress growth, and we see a little levels out a little bit, and then it continues to grow. But I honestly don't know. Do you want to Mickey? You weren't at WordCamp US. Do you want to
Correct.
you do you want to like do you want a recap of like my opinion or our opinion on what's
Yeah, that'd
going
be a
on?
good place to start. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, Matt, you were there too, so feel free to chime in.
Yeah.
For the way I'm seeing this, and I've got a bunch of tabs open. Hold on one second. Let me pull up. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say the Matt's website, Matt Mullenweg's website, ma.tt. I'll pull it up in just a second. It says someone wants to join the call. Who is this? Oh, I think that's Matt's. I'm gonna
Oh,
deny your note taker.
ignore.
Sorry,
Sorry,
it just
guys. I'll try to tell it not to next time. Ignore
you're
him.
so
Yeah.
denied. So,
Sorry.
um, anyway, so Matt gets on stage, and we as people who attend WordPress, we don't have a ton of like I don't know what's going on, with Matt every day, right? So I was assuming he's going to go up and do a normal talk. He goes on stage and basically I kind of like hold on, let me pull up my notes because it's worth having some notes here. So he basically goes on stage and in the background, can you hear me, Mickey? Okay, all right. All of a sudden, I saw your lips moving, but I
Yeah.
didn't hear anything.
Yeah,
So,
no, you're good.
Okay, so I mean, basically, he gets on stage, and from my perspective, I thought it was a normal talk, and it it took me probably like 2 or 3 minutes of him like talking about WP Engine for me to realize like, oh, this is a roast. Like this is just completely like, and I brought two employees, my chief of staff and CTO, with me, because it's WordCamp, and I figured it was worth having there. And that was their first experience with Matt Mullenweg, which like just like every other WordCamp in the world, when you raise, people will ask, is this your first WordCamp? There were a lot of people where this was your first, their first WordCamp, and it was just I don't necessarily agree with what Matt did, but in principle, like I see where he's coming from, but the way it was all brought in front of this, where he ends the conversation, or not conversation, ends the talk, and we're trying to figure out what what's the end, like what was the point in this. I mean, Matt, would you agree?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think going into it, he kind of started with this, infinity symbol, yin and yang theory, but essentially it came down to tragedy of commons, where everyone shares this common space. If you just suck it all out, it's dry, right? And he didn't really say who initially he was talking about, but then it kind of, like you said, veered into this roast situation. And then he just kind of ended it with, and that's my presentation. That's what he said. And we were all just like, what did we do? And that was my first US level WordCamp. So I had no idea going in that it was going to be kind of like that,
It's
especially
not
with,
normal.
yeah, I had no idea. So from at least the first timers, I had a really good networking, building relationships, friendships with all sorts of people. And then, yeah, I hadn't seen, last time I saw Matt Mulligan was, I don't know, like at a random WordCamp like 10 years ago or something. So it was definitely, yeah, super surprised to me. And yeah, I wasn't really sure, like, what do we do with this now? Exactly.
Yeah,
I was going to say, Aaron, from what I watched your video you posted the other day and got me looking more at the WP Engine cease and desist, and it was interesting that Matt sent them a text like moments before, like, am I, like, a picture, am I about to go kill you all or not? Like, it's just
that
interesting.
was
He made it that clear. Like, okay, I guess I'm going to kill you. Here we go. And he walked up and roasted them. Like, what is that?
that so that's the thing that I think bothers me the most is it, all due respect to Matt, but you know, to me that was trolling, and if I had like a client that were texting me and taunting me like that, like I don't like that vibe. I feel like that
Oh, for
that
sure.
doesn't that doesn't that doesn't fit the whole WordPress ecosystem.
Ecosystem. Yeah.
And it could be that Matt, now I watched, this is, let me pull up my, go to Matt, let's see, Matt.tt. So like on, I don't know, you guys can't see my screen, but if you go to ma.tt, basically there's a really good 20 to 30 minute thing where Matt jumped on someone's YouTube channel. That's what I was hoping here. No, not really. Matt's probably a little busy, but
Yeah,
he jumped
probably.
on a YouTube chat thing like this, and he just answered questions. But I didn't did you guys watch that
I need
yet?
to. I've
I
not yet.
did. I did see it. I did see it, and I think, at least from my perspective, like, I agreed with a lot of the things he said, but then when it came to the questions around the community and how he handled it, he basically, in my opinion, for the most part, he's like, "Oh, I think I could have handled a little bit better," but a lot of it, even up into the things that have happened a few days ago, we can talk about. He was like, "No, I sleep sound at night." like with the whole situation with how it was
He
handled.
didn't answer the question. But because it was a yes or no question, he said, "Is there anything in the past 2 weeks that you would do differently?"
Yeah.
And he didn't say yes or no. He said, "I sleep okay," because which to me, like, so
When he
does
said,
that?
I did everything I could have, is what he said. He did say that, though.
Everything could
Yeah.
have to what goal? I mean, I've been to US a couple times, and you expect his speech. I always assumed it was for the people in the room and for us WordPress folks around the world, and it was not for that at all. It was for his grievance. Like I saw a comment on Reddit that said, "The stability of the WordPress ecosystem can no longer be taken for granted. It's a game piece for Matt to play with in Automattic's business disputes." I'm like, yeah, that's basically what it is. He's using it as a game piece for business disputes rather than serving the community, and that's my biggest problem here.
That it's almost a conflict in interest. I mean, the fact that so transitioning just a little bit, the fact so 4 days later after that, Matt decides to block basically WP Engine's servers access to get WordPress updates,
Which also includes Flywheel, who they own, which we have 340 sites on Flywheel. So yeah,
Yes.
that's been super
and
fun.
I don't know if we should inject just to keep people kind of in the realm if they don't know what's going on. So he had that conversation. There were more blasts online, on his end of basically saying WP Engine is not WordPress. And then there was obviously the trademark infringement and the cease and desist from WP Engine to Automattic as well before the repo block, right? Just to make sure I'm covering it all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're now at where they blocked it. Aaron, to continue.
Yeah. So they have blocked WP Engine server. So I'm assuming all they did was they looked at WP Engine's IP addresses, and if the requests are from those IP addresses, they block it. Which
I don't think so.
That's really, really scary for. I just think worst case scenario, right? Like how does that affect me in the future? And to me, I can't. I'm not a lot less, but I'm still less likely to use WordPress, because of the stability of this, where it's like, I know for years to come, I'm gonna be in a meeting where I'm gonna be telling someone we do WordPress and we build these things, and they're gonna say, "Didn't WordPress? Isn't that that project where the guy, went crazy and you couldn't get updates and all that stuff?" Like that type of thing that's what I'm worried about. Like I feel like this is all going to get figured out within the WordPress community, but in the meantime, that's damage towards the ecosystem that we're all benefiting from and contributing to, even if you don't consider writing code to core. To me, I think if you're leading a meetup, you're promoting WordPress, whatever. There's more than just like writing code, to give back.
No, I'd say I was thinking. I'm not sure, Matt, of your history, but I know for me and Aaron, we probably each put at least 25,000 hours into WordPress related stuff. I mean, over the last 15 years. Not to mention, we both hosted meetups for decades. We both led WordCamp. I think we're both core contributors. I know I am a very tiny one, but nonetheless, I am.
I don't think I'm a core contributor.
I technically am on a yeah, but I mean, again, we've done so much stuff WordPress, and that's what I'm worried he's hurting is I'm a WP Engine user, and like I contribute a lot. And it's a weird thing there too. But the other side of it, you said people are gonna be worried about WordPress, and I agree. It is hurting WordPress's reputation. I think it still is a safer place than most other places you can go for websites. And I want to get into some of that too, because I don't know some of the other self-hosted platforms. Well, I'm thinking like if Squarespace gets mad at someone, they kick them off and you're dead. Like Squarespace, famously got mad at America's frontline doctors during the COVID thing and said, you're gone. Like he can't do that. He can't take websites offline. Even if he could, you can move somewhere else. You still own your site, which is better than you are on Webflow or Wix or Squarespace or anything where you don't really own your stuff. You're beholden to the company to do anything.
Right.
So it's better than that. But there's, I think, the other opportunities out there, the fully self-hosted ones. And again, I'm not as up on those. There's opportunity there for them to maybe start sprouting up more as the solution you can really own, like Ghost, I think, is, and some of that kind of stuff.
Right.
Well, I think, and this kind of plays into what you're saying, but at least from my perspective as someone that was involved in other open source groups previous to WordPress, I always, to be honest, with WordPress, I knew about Matt Mulligan and I knew kind of the situation of how things were kind of set up. And there was some concern there a long time ago in my mind about that. And, people kind of had this like, well, Automattic, they're kind of clingy with how they kind of handle users and pushing, which, you may or may not agree with. But I think on the outside perspective, that was always kind of a concern, which is why I had problems niching in on WordPress actually for a long time, because I didn't feel comfortable going all in when literally people told me like this one guy has a ton of power. And I think that's kind of been proven now at this point,
Yeah,
that he
indeed.
literally does have that power. And again, I'm not disagreeing with everything that from a moral standpoint of what he's saying, but I think it's now just kind of opened that insecurity that a lot of people had outside of the project, around the stability of WordPress and of course open source in general, especially for larger organizations or organizations that where stability is obviously like mission critical for their websites. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but
No,
FYI, I guess.
And I'm curious, and Aaron, you may know more here. What other open source web development projects are there that are more community driven? Because I figured with WordPress.org and with all the stuff they've set up, it was actually set up to be so community focused that you couldn't have one person, even Matt, take over. And clearly I was wrong about that assumption. But of the other options, are there any that aren't have one person or one small group in charge? And I don't know there is.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of, I mean, to be complete, like the Automattic community. Wow, that's Freudian slip. The WordPress community, that is not owned by Automattic. I don't know of any other community that's like this. Where it's this big, where they have 43-ish%, of the market share. I think about like Linux, and I know that like the Debian Linux team, like the way they run their organization is different than the way like Red Hat does it, or Fedora, or whatever they are. But I don't know. That is the one thing about the WordPress. I think the WordPress community is just so unique. I haven't been able to find another community where I can compare. I know Joomla and Drupal, like they're so. I'm not using this as a time to slam other CMSs, but I mean they're small,
Right.
So it's like I kind of feel like they're going to be clinging to every person possible, trying to grow that. Whereas we have a ton of people in the WordPress community. I don't know.
But if
didn't answer your question, I don't think. But
well, that's what I was going to say. Like, if Drupal were to take off and grow, what does their structure look like? Like, how open source and free really is it versus having a person or organization that could do this when they get to 30%?
Yeah, and I mean, I could be wrong for sure, but from my understanding, Drupal had a fairly similar setup as far as they had an enterprise kind of corporate for-profit side and then a nonprofit side, and they kind of have, I think it's Dries that runs Drupal as kind of like their top guy, and that's kind of how that's been built out. And then you have something like Joomla, which is a lot more community driven in the sense there's not really one top dog. But actually, a lot of people have said that's why Joomla has not grown, because they didn't have a visionary behind their project to the same level that Drupal did for enterprise. And, WordPress has obviously grown into the massive monster it is. So, yeah, I mean, there's kind of pluses and minuses to each of it, but it is kind of interesting looking on the outside, looking at, well, this was a lot of people's concern early on with how WordPress was structured. But to your point, when you look outside of this and you look outside of open source and you look at commercial projects, it's even, more kind of closed off. So what's like the right balance, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. The other question I have, and you guys may be more able to answer this, I see Matt's main issue with WP Engine actually being 3 completely separate, almost unrelated issues. Because he said at one point, it's a trademark dispute. That's the whole thing. It's a trademark thing. That's why. But then he's also, no, they're bastardizing WordPress by not allowing post revisions. They're ruining WordPress. That's really the thing. And they said, no, that's not. It's because they're not contributing enough. They should be giving more money back. That's the thing. Like, he has 3 different things he's saying is the thing. It's like he's just throwing stuff to try to see what sticks to get people on his side. Because, like, it's either trademarks or it's bastardizing or it's contributing. I don't know that. I guess it could be all three, but it seems like he's kind of jumping around like, what are y'all going to ride with me on? And I don't ride with any of those really.
Yeah, fair enough. And sorry, I'm sitting here. I'm trying to get possibly Bobby on this
That's all.
call
Yeah,
here.
I
So,
see you chatting there.
but,
Yeah, I mean, I think that is what's causing more confusion, which is my particular concern with this whole thing, which is essentially that no one really completely understands why WP Engine is being called out to this degree and not other hosts, and that's concerning agencies and hosts, etc. Because, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's one of the questions I have. Is
Go
like,
ahead, Clockwork WP.
What?
WP?
Oh,
yeah, WP. Yes.
So, I'll talk to you about that in a few
Yeah, I
weeks
know that's
about the name.
Hey, Bobby.
Hey, Bobby.
What's up, y'all?
Yeah, is this just the beginning? Like that's
Right.
that's my like I hate to be like a fearful like person, but
You love to do that. Come on.
I do it's fun. But like it.
No, you're
At
right though.
At what point does a hosting company fall out of his graces? Like they're in my humble opinion, we should have a some kind of like it's kind of like you don't when you have nukes, like more than one person has the key, in this type of situation. I feel like I mean maybe Matt's warranted. I don't feel like I feel like it moved pretty fast, at least without giving us context. That's one of the things that's bothered me the most is I'm not intelligent enough about what has happened to pick a side yet. So, I mean, I'm leaning towards, I'm seeing what Matt's doing, and it doesn't look promising to me. So, I don't know.
Correct.
Bobby, you want to jump in and...
Hey, everybody. So,
hey, man. You didn't know you were going to do this afternoon, did you?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I did not.
Neither did Mickey, but I'm like,
There you go.
Sure,
Yeah.
why not?
Come on.
No,
Glad you joined.
no, I'm glad to jump in. And I'm glad you guys are talking about this because I don't know. I watched that. Did you all watch Matt's interview? I'm sorry if I missed the beginning. Okay.
Which interview? The one that he did last night with or was it done today?
No, last night.
Okay,
Sorry.
I've seen it.
Yeah. And I guess he has some valid points. It seems like it's definitely a list of grievances that have apparently gone on for years. Although he didn't directly answer the question of like what he actually discussed with WP Engine specifically. He just kind of went through a search of his calendar, I guess.
I have pictures of stuff too, but that doesn't mean that I had the conversations that just because I was standing next to the person doesn't mean that I have proof that we discussed this and they said no, we're not going to contribute. So
right.
I don't care if they contribute. I mean, I think they should, but that's the concern is what you mentioned that, Aaron, before. Is like, what level does a hosting company need to contribute before he gets mad at them? Like, every hosting company should be scared of that now. Like, am I contributing enough or is he going to block my stuff because he doesn't like me?
I don't know if y'all saw, but yeah, I mean, when we were at the WordCamp, one of the Q&As, like one of the GoDaddy reps went up and started talking about their hours immediately after, like peddling to Matt because they've been on the cutting block before about this. And again, I mean, however you feel about GoDaddy, but where is the transparency around what you should be contributing, what the trademark situation is, why are they enforcing it now and only on, because he straight up said in that talk last night, like, I only have an issue with WP Engine. But we're like, okay, that's great and all, but where did you come? Why now? What forced this, right?
Because he's mad, bro.
Yeah. Well, Matt, but you said how much should they be contributing? And that's a fair question. We can ask that of any company, but how much do they need to contribute? I still think should be zero, like to have access to the repository. The fact that it's apparently not zero is very concerning, as Aaron keeps saying,
Yeah, well, one of the things that scares me is you guys know Red Hat Linux, right? That was like the flagship, open source. Look how great it is. You can contribute and people can make money and all this stuff. Well, about a year ago, Red Hat changed their licensing where it's open source, but you have to have a subscription to get access to that open source. Like they changed, like I'm like, it's like that is not open source. Like that's
Right.
to me that it, and is WordPress going to go like I'm shocked that Red Hat Linux did that, where
Mhm.
now it's not really open source. You have to pay to get the open source code. Like, could Matt do that? I mean,
It sounds
that's like
preposterous, but Red Hat makes it seem possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Uh-huh.
It's just I just a little. I'm just concerned.
Mhm.
Like that's a valid problem where I have all of my clients on using WordPress, and I makes me a little nervous. So
I I think it's hard to really balance, like, we all want this open source movement from the moral standpoint, but we're obviously living in a world where someone has to pay for all of this, right?
Mhm.
And Automattic has taken on investors. Those investors include BlackRock, which is, in the same sort of situation as Silver Lake. And, I do wonder sometimes if some of this is related to that. He has his own investors he has to basically, get back to, right? And if they're not hitting the numbers, that could be a conspiracy. But I mean, they have taken hundreds of millions of dollars from equity companies too, right?
Oh.
And that's something I think that kind of plays into it, it's just really the transparency issue here that I think is just so difficult. Like, what should be the governance? And then, he's not wrong in the sense, if I, as a for-profit company, am spending 100, or I have 100 developers working on this nonprofit for the foundation, and I'm competing directly with WP Engine, but I have my own investors to answer to, like, how can I do that? Right. And so he's trying to kind of play both sides. And I think that's part of the problem, to be honest, is you can't play both sides. You can't have the foundation that's entirely run by Automattic employees, basically mostly contributing, right? Contributing the most. I just don't know if this was the best way to actually go about raising more money, is attacking another competitor.
I don't
is
think
my
so.
concern. I just feel like there should have been an open conversation about, like, okay, how can we get the money that needs to be there for these resources to run properly as a community, rather than all this backdoor and then just a kind of public attack right after that none of us know anything about, right?
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with something Aaron said earlier, and we'll see who's right
you're not
in
allowed
years
to
from now.
do that. I'm dropping you.
No way.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But we've climbed for years. WordPress climbed is at 43%. It's kind of plateaued. And I kept thinking we're going to hit a peak at some point and then slowly decline over the next decade or whatever. I think this is that peak now. I think this is defined, like, we're going to lose people. It's going to start falling. I'm not worried about our company. WordPress isn't going anywhere unless they Red Hat it, but that seems unlikely. It's not going anywhere for the next decade. I mean, if it falls precipitously, it's still going to be 30% of the market in 10 years. Like, it's going to still be a huge percent. But I feel like you say we plateaued and we'll go up from here. I think we plateaued and it goes down from here. But I don't know. But again, I'm not.
I would, if we were betting, I would bet that we have plateaued and it is going to go down, because not everything good lasts forever.
And 43%, you can only get so much saturation of the internet. I mean, yeah.
Right. So I mean, like,
To be fair, I thought 30 was it too, but maybe, yeah.
Right. Who would have thought it? Something. I mean, WordPress was really crappy the first year or two. Like it was really bad. It's amazing that it has become what it has become, where it's this massive beast. I mean, so no, kudos to Matt in that aspect. But yeah, it's I would bet that we're on the. I don't even want to say decline, because decline makes it sound like it's bad. There's still plenty. Like, there's plenty of work. There's plenty of WordPress stuff to be built. So I'm not worried. But yeah, I think we're probably leveling out.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if any other CMS catches them in market share in a decade. I mean,
right?
Because isn't Shopify second place right now, like 2.3% or something? Like, it's not. There's no one even in the ballpark. So yeah.
Right. My guess is, I'll be able to retire, and WordPress will still be, will have a good market share.
That's fair. Well, I would like to hear some of y'all's thoughts on that too. Like, all of us have companies that are based on WordPress. What are your thoughts on what this means for that? Short term, long term.
Let's go around and do that. Like,
Yeah.
All right.
60 seconds or something. And yeah, Matt. Sorry, I was looking at you. You couldn't tell.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the short term, I don't think it's going to really affect anything from my perspective. I've already actually had discussions with a couple clients, for example, on WP Engine. And honestly, they don't really care. Even the more corporate ones, they're just like, whatever, like this stuff happens, just keep us posted, which,
Yep.
is good to hear. That's what I kind of wanted to hear. They trust us, and that it's going to work out. And I think, from that perspective, I think it's going to be good. I think from the long term, I have some concerns of where this goes for more, mid-market and mid-sized businesses, because they will kind of look from the outside, and if they don't even trust us at this point yet and we're trying to sell them a service, then I do have concerns that like they're gonna be like, well, y'all have all these kind of conflicts internally. Like maybe y'all aren't stable enough to be able to handle this, sort of thing. Like it was funny during Matt's Q&A, someone asked about some contracts and someone mentioned government contracts. And I just thought it was funny that, he was like, oh yeah, I'm super excited for these government contracts. I'm like, you realize how this looks to anyone who wants stability, right? But what it is what it is. So outside of that, yeah, I mean, I do have concerns. I do think with WordPress, we're either plateauing or declining. And I really want to know, like, what are the reasons behind that, right? Because this is only possibly accelerating that in not a positive way. I mean, there's obviously the splits over Gutenberg. There were a lot of issues the past 5 years with a lot of, people in the community over that decision. A lot of people blamed Matt for that to begin with. And I just don't know if this is really what WordPress needed right now, to be honest. But I do think he might be seeing it as, I'm Batman and I'm saving y'all, and y'all just don't realize it right now. Right. And maybe he's right. Like he might be right.
That's what like in the back of my head. Does he know something like I don't know? And I'm going to be like, man, he's brilliant. Like I hope, that's what I hope.
But yeah, to answer your question, I do think long term it's going to be harder to sell larger sites. I think smaller probably won't affect, and I think WordPress is still going to be a long, definitely a long time around, where it's not really going to probably affect me in that way, or our agencies, because it has such a massive market share. Even if it loses it today, I mean, for better or worse, it's going to be around. So,
what about you, Bobby?
I don't know. Like I feel like we're so into this, right? Like we know everything that's going on. And when this all came out, like we all know people. I mean, literally you guys were watching it as it was happening. Like Aaron and Matt, like I think a lot of people don't even know about this. And it's funny because he also brought up the whole thing of like people being confused between WP Engine and WordPress. And I saw like people in the admin bar saying, how can people like get confused between those two people? But I literally talked to another agency owner who does not live, breathe, and does WordPress every day. And he really did think WP Engine was like the hosting company for WordPress. And when he said that, I was shocked.
Yeah,
I believe it.
But but then I was like, yeah, actually, if he builds, I think for his agency, they build sites in Webflow, right? So like this is just, he doesn't really know what's going on with all of this. He's just a business owner, agency owner, and he's not enmeshed with WordPress the way we are. And even I don't even develop in WordPress. I just like working in WordPress sites, and a lot of the websites that we work on are in WordPress, and we do host and maintain WordPress. So I shouldn't say that, but like on a very, very, very small scale, right?
Do you work with a lot of non-WordPress too, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've worked with all kinds of platforms, right? Like,
which one's best?
WordPress.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, it is
Good
like
answer.
the one that has the most capabilities. But you know what? We've been hosting sites in WordPress, and they don't do any content for it. It is really just a portfolio site or a brochure site. And it's like, for some of them, I'm like, WordPress is kind of overkill for you now. Like, I feel like Squarespace has evolved and Wix has evolved to a certain degree, like that these people that don't really do that many updates to their site, they're not doing content like generation on a regular basis. They're not blogging. They're not trying to do SEO. It's like WordPress in a way is kind of overkill for them. So I don't know. Like, and so it kind of goes with what you were saying, Mickey, about like plateauing and the percentages plateauing. Because I feel like these other tools are fine for somebody who just wants to build a website. And I do cringe when we have to deal with a company that wants to do SEO and content marketing, and they want to use Squarespace for this, and I'm just like, oh god, because just how they call things is so weird, and it's hard to control the structure of the site. You can't even edit robots.txt. You can't do all the nerdy SEO stuff that I like to do. But I feel like this is almost for most people, they just don't know or don't care. But unless you're a WP Engine customer and you get those alerts and you're getting those emails, because I know people are getting tons and tons of emails. Customers are getting constant emails about this thing, which makes it very confusing to the customer. And also makes it seem like, well, hey, aren't you WordPress hosting? So why is this a problem now? Like, but for most people, I think it really doesn't make a difference either way. I don't know.
Yeah, I would think most people have no idea. I mean, most agencies, they just trust us. They just trust that we're going to make the right decision and we're using the best platform. That I still think that's the case. Like this doesn't mess me up where I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? I mean, this is one one hosting company. Yes, we do have some websites there. I'm not too worried about it yet. Next week and nothing changes, then I could get a little concerned and possibly move some things away because I'm not about to start manually updating like core, or anything like that. I mean, maybe I'll do that once.
Those days are over.
Right. That, like, yeah. But so I see this as a blip, in what's happening. And this is not the first time we've had some fires like this, and things calm down eventually. It is going to be a negative thing, I think, in the future, where I can come back. People are going to come back later and be like, did they figure out that problem? With the,
who are those people?
Yeah.
Our clients don't know about this. They never will. Like, who are the people
IT
you're concerned
guys,
about?
Like IT people.
Yeah.
They're
right.
going to hear about it, and they're,
it was in
already
TechCrunch, for example.
I have to justify, like WordPress is stable, it's safe and things like that. People are like, well, it gets hacked all the time, and it's like, well, yeah, sure it does, because it has, there's however many million sites out there, right? So I mean, of course, when 100,000 of them get hit, that's probably some obscure plugin that hasn't been updated in 8 years and stuff like that. So it's like WordPress, like, core is safe, so I do have to argue that, I mean, not all the time, when it comes to that, but if there's an IT guy in there, that he's
That's
never
fair.
happy that we're using WordPress, and that, they always want to, make it more secure than really needed. So,
Yes.
but yeah, I think they're gonna give me crap at some point,
Okay,
so.
that's fair.
Yeah.
To Bobby's point, we do have some clients that say, I'll say, where are you guys hosted? Oh, we're hosted on WordPress Engine. Like, they just call it WordPress Engine. I mean, you're right that a lot of people do confuse it with that. But I think most of our clients don't know that this is happening. And I'd say a good chunk don't even realize they're on WordPress. That's just, they want a website, they want marketing done, they have a goal. And so we solve it with WordPress. But that's not really their concern per se. But then, Aaron, to your point, in the next week or two, something's going to change. I've seen people on Facebook and stuff already saying, if you're on WP Engine, it's time to move off right away. I'm like, let's take a breath here. But if this is still happening in a couple weeks and doesn't seem to get close to resolving, and poor Ashley's trying to do all these updates on all these sites by hand, like, we might start considering things. But I feel like in a week or two, we'll have an answer. Either they'll be saying, all right, it's going to be a big legal battle, it's going to take months and it's chaos, or, okay, they've kind of patched things up for now and we're good. But one way or another,
Yeah.
we'll have a resolution to know either, okay, we're good, or all right, time to start moving off.
Well,
But not going yet.
Matt's like they could just build their own infrastructure. It's open source. They can build their own.
But I've heard that, like, is there going to be OpenPress coming out from, powered by WP Engine, that they start their own fork? And I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
Well, honestly, like that type of stuff, like you get WP Engine. I guess you wouldn't get Bluehost. It sounds like Bluehost is, as much as I like the people there, it seems like they're going to do whatever Matt tells them to do. I could be
Yeah.
wrong, but
Yeah.
it seems like they're in the good graces of Matt, but you could get all of the hosting companies together and be like, hey, we're actually going to host WordPress here, you
Mhm.
know, and that now that does cost money, so, but
Yeah.
I mean, worst case scenario that, that it wouldn't take that many to fork and start, but
yeah, I mean, that feels like the beginning of a fork if that happens, to be honest, which
Oh,
I
for
think all
sure.
comes back to like Matt's running a profit driven company, but he's trying to run a foundation, and it's an impossible situation to be in. You're competing
familiar.
with they're completely opposite, what the community wants and what nonprofit wants is completely opposite of what a for-profit equity driven company is supposed to want anyways. I'm not saying Automattic entirely wants what WP Engine wants, but you see what I'm saying. They're kind of like they're competitors like in that space, and he's not wrong, but also he's kind of put himself there in a sense, because that's how he's trying to drive revenue towards Automattic, and the revenue towards that obviously goes to the foundation. So it's a really tricky situation.
Yeah, my concern is that WP Engine will fork it. And the one thing I love about WordPress, I tell folks all the time, if your host is bad, we can move you to another host easy enough. But if they are on OpenPress, which is like WordPress, but not, you become more locked in. It starts becoming a Squarespace kind of thing,
It's Linux all over again.
Yeah.
Matt was making the argument that they're already doing that anyways at WP Engine, right?
Yeah, he's wrong. I can move a site off WP Engine tomorrow without a problem. Yeah. I think
true.
They've just tweaked enough that he's arguing that. But
yeah,
essentially, it wouldn't be like a compatibility issue.
He complains about post revisions, which are a core feature that they built in 15 years ago. And WP Engine started blocking those when he was like an investor on the board, or like he was heavily involved with WP Engine when they made that decision, and he didn't mind either. Like his whole, some of his arguments just aren't really holding up here, other than I want more money. And I want you guys to give it to me because I feel like you probably should. Like that's just doesn't, I feel like maybe they should too. That's not, that's not legal. Like, right. Yeah. I want them to give me more. That's my argument. Like, but yeah, I'm scared. I'm scared WP Engine will open source, and maybe if they all got together and did it, and everyone started switching to OpenPress or whatever, like. But yeah, it was like right now, if you're still on Cafe Log, like, what are you doing these days after it forked to WordPress? So
it's interesting when he was talking about licensing, right? Like that it seemed he was very vague about who gets to license what.
Yes, definitely.
And he also made it seem like all WP Engine has to do is just pay a licensing fee, and everything will be forgiven.
Yeah.
Which that's probably not going to happen anymore. But then he was also talking about like all the other hosting providers aren't. It's not an issue with other hosting providers. You can see the list. They have the list of hosting providers they recommend. Bluehost is at the top. GoDaddy's nowhere on that list. By the way, and certainly not WP
a lot of
Engine.
hosts aren't. Yeah, I mean that's what's still very confusing. It's like, again, like as I said earlier, like he isn't clear on what you need to be meeting in contribution and trademarks and all of this. It's not really clear, and that's what I think's just made this so confusing. Is like, where do all these hosts stand? And he's like, oh, other hosts pay, but when he was pressed, it wasn't very clear, like, who's paying, right? And I think that's kind of part of the tricky situation is it's just not transparent. Like, what should they be, if it's required, if you're going to make it required, then like you need to make it clear publicly.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think you mentioned the list of recommended hosts. I've always felt that was kind of a shady list anyhow. So I think it is here's the host that pay us the most, because Bluehost has improved, I think, lately. but traditionally they've sucked. Like they've not been great. And they've always been like the host you should use. Like, why is WordPress recommending them above all others? And like, I think you hit it there, Matt, because they probably contribute the most, and therefore, but that should be two different lists. Like that should be, here's the host we recommend because they pay us the most versus the hosts that are best for your business. Like that's icky.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, like Automattic seems like they're also involved with some of this, kind of unclear business practices, as other hosts are. I don't know if y'all saw the article by the Yoast SEO.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah, Yoast of all.
Yeah. Yeah, he basically said the same thing. Once I became this bigwig, in my company, and we started talking to Automattic and we talked to all these other companies, it became very clear there's a lot of money being exchanged. The community doesn't even know is happening, and there's no real transparency around that. And I think that's kind of part of it. And that's really the problem here is the community doesn't understand what's going on because, okay, maybe it is a trademark infringement, but who's paying licenses right now? What hosts? You said some hosts, but we have no idea what other hosts. Like why? It just, it's very unclear on, WP Engine being specifically targeted. And, I'm not saying WP Engine's a great host, but, there's a lot of different ways people can contribute, and it's not clear on what should or shouldn't work before, they just turn off the spout and the repo's closed. Right?
I was reading somewhere, and I don't remember where it was, that Newfold, which is Bluehost's parent, don't they have some special licensing deal with WordPress?
Yeah, so they pay Automattic, or I guess hold on. See that's what hence the confusion, right? Like
Yes.
it's not it's the fact that he is the president of both is a little I don't know. Anyway,
It's open AI
Automattic and both Automattic and WordPress.org, right? Which is the nonprofit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your question? I totally sorry, that totally threw me for a loop. Like all of a sudden,
right?
Because
because Automattic license out controls the license for WordPress branding, right? Is that
trademark? Yes,
the trademark
for WordPress, not for WP.
Right, for WordPress.
Yes, WP is not covered at all.
Although they're trying to change that a little bit, but their new wording is very weird and vague. But that's a different. Go ahead.
Yeah. So then, but I thought I saw that there was even some licensing deal with Newfold that's separate from any other company, at least in the hosting space. But maybe
I think Matt said that the only people that are licensing the trademark is or I guess it probably says Newfold, which is owned by, or Bluehost is owned by them. So
the wording of they updated the WordPress Foundation trademark, and so it used to be the abbreviation WP is not covered by the WordPress trademark, so you're free to use it any way you see fit. It goes on now. It says the abbreviation WP is not covered by the WordPress trademarks, but please don't use it in a way that confuses people. For example, many people think WP Engine is WordPress Engine and officially started with WordPress, which it's not. They've never once even donated to the WordPress Foundation, despite making billions of dollars of revenue on top of it. If you would like to use the WordPress trademark, please contact Automattic. But again, it still starts with...
That's a recent edit, isn't it?
Oh, it is. They just changed it.
Even that sentence is like...
Yeah.
It's trite in like a... Sorry, but I'll just... It's like a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Like that's not very professional. Like that's the stuff that I don't
but
want to associate.
The first sentence is still the key. The new one, the first sentence, the abbreviation WP is not covered by the WordPress trademarks, but please don't use it in a way that confuses people. Like, does that change it? You still can use it. Like, so they're just saying the WP Engine confuses people because they think it's WordPress Engine, but all the other companies, WP Beginner, like, are they in trouble? Because it sounds like it's WordPress Beginner. Like, that's their training module. Like, there's so many. I mean, you could name 50 of them that have that. Like,
it seems like Matt, because when that came up in that video, he gave that example and said WP Beginner was fine, but WP Engine wasn't. And then that goes into his other points that like they do other things that confuse, I guess, the trademark and they don't contribute. But how do those tie together? And that's what's so confusing about this whole thing. Like you just can't tell as a host or even an agency. Like, I'm not really worried about, that, or using managed WordPress, on our services page. But I know a lot of agencies are very worried about that because, people have different levels of risk they're willing to take. Because that's one of the things they've obviously looked and trademarked. So, where's that line again for even agency owners? Like, if you can use WordPress on your website, like, technically it sounds like if you're not contributing enough, whatever that means, then, they could come after you, right?
And contributing seems like in Matt's world these days is dollars. I mean, he did mention hours a little bit, but I think his main thing is dollars. But that's where I'm kind of pleased our decision with our agency for other reasons over the last 5 years, so it kind of distanced itself from WordPress, not to distance from WordPress, but just because it doesn't matter to the clients we're trying to reach. They're just, so like our meetup used to be all things WordPress, and now it's a brighter web. We want to encompass like all of your marketing, not just WordPress focused, but like, I'm kind of glad we've sort of done some of that. We certainly do have a lot of stuff on our site about WordPress and about maintenance and, why we choose it and all that. But yeah, it's worked out well for us just strategically to move away from it a little bit, even though, Bobby, I know you use different platforms and stuff. We're still 100% WordPress. If you're not WordPress, we can't help you at all. Like we've kind of been discussing that over the last year or so, but that's still our policy. That's all we are. And will that change? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I say we end on that note. So the big unknown, I would say let's do this next Friday, but I'm actually busy at this time. I'll try to do another one next week because I'm just cool. Fascinated with what's going on, what the next step is, and how quickly is this going to get resolved for people, and who knows.
Again, I feel like in a week or two we'll have a lot more answers. Either they'll have reached a temporary agreement and we're good to go, or they're going to raise the stakes and we know it's going to last for months, and either way it's going to lead to some decisions to be made. So I'm curious. I'm hoping something happens next week or two to at least either fix it or know that it's not going to be fixed for a while. This limbo is what kills me. Like, again, with Ashley having to update all these dang sites by hand, like this can't go forever. So is it going to end or not? Like, so we'll see.
It's true. Well, the adults show up in the room. We'll see.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for jumping on, guys, and I will see you at the next thing, whatever that is.
Yeah, appreciate you putting this together.
That's good.
Yeah, it's fun. Thanks.
It's fun.
See you.
Right, see you guys
later.
Bye.